Hey everyone! My name is Anna and you're watching The Brass Rabbit. In this video, I'll be showing you how I customized one of my first dolls, Twyla. First, let's take off the factory paint with pure acetone, which I picked up from Walmart for a whopping $2. I always start with the eyes, and then I move on to the eyebrows and lips after that. Once I have most of that removed, I wipe the whole face down with an acetone-soaked cotton ball. Now, to get into those little nooks and crannies, like the lips, I would actually recommend using a toothpick, not an X-Acto knife like you see me doing here, as you might damage the vinyl. After washing her face with warm soapy water, I recommend spraying at least 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear. Now that she's all ready to go, we can start blushing. I don't always start with the lips, it just kind of depends on what I feel like starting with at the moment. I gently dab on the color. After that, I move on to the cheeks. As you can see, I didn't have the best lighting here, so it was a little difficult to get the sides to have even amounts of color. Just use a kneaded eraser to dab some away. Now it's time to move on to the nose and forehead. Just as a side note here, I am still a beginner, so you're probably going to see me make a lot of mistakes. I wanted to make this channel for other beginners at doll customizing who might be going through the same struggles that I did, and show you how I overcame them and what I learned along the way. Even after countless hours of watching video after video, I still had a lot of questions and I went through a lot of trial and error. So if you're watching this and you're a beginner too, I hope this is helpful to you, and if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave a comment or make a suggestion for what I could make more clear in the future. As you can see, I've moved on to doing some more blushing around the brow bone at the edge of the eyes. Then, I add just a little bit of eyeshadow in the crease of the eye. Here, I'm using a brown pencil to add some more detailing into the corners of the lips. Once I'm satisfied with the initial blushing, I spray her with another coat of Mr. Super Clear and start sketching out the eyes. Don't be afraid to use an eraser and go in and clean up some of the line work if you make a mistake, as I'm doing here. Like I said, I'm still a beginner. One of the hardest things to do, especially when you're first starting out, is trying to get the face to look symmetrical. It's a lot harder than it sounds, honestly. All you can really do is try your best to make it look like the eyes are even. It takes a lot of practice, but like I said before, don't be afraid to use an eraser and go back and redo things that don't look right. After spraying her again, I go into the irises and start filling them in. I'm sure you've heard it from a lot of other YouTubers, but if you haven't, you're gonna hear it from me. But one of the key things to do when you're doing a doll face-up is to build up color gradually through multiple coats of sealant. To illustrate why that's important, you can see here that I'm going over my initial sketch with black pencil to make it darker. This would not be possible if you did not put multiple coats of sealant on in between the layers of color. Eventually, you won't be able to build up color anymore on the same layer of sealant. After customizing dolls now for a few months, I still really struggle with eyebrows. There are a few ways to do them. In this, I'm sketching out a rough placement of them, and then later on I'll put in more detail. To make the eyes look a little more realistic, I go in with a black pencil and I add some definition to the eyelids. From here on out, I'm mostly just going over the lines again and again to add more vibrance and more color. Take a white pencil and make some highlights on the cupid's bow of the lips. It makes them pop a little more. Now I'm going in and adding more detail in the eyebrows and building them out a little bit more with pastels. I've found that the easiest way to do it is to block in the color and then erase away what you don't want with a kneaded eraser. Or you could use a regular eraser too, but in this video I'm using a kneaded eraser. Either one works really. I also like to go in and add some more definition to the outer corners of the eyebrows with darker pencils. For me, eyelashes are also something where the struggle is way too real. It's really hard to get them even. But I guess the best advice that I can give you is to take it slow, because I found that if you go too fast, it can be easy to make mistakes. Also, as another side note, I've found that when it comes to sealing, you really can use too much sealant. I thought there was no such thing as that, but it turns out there is. I was spraying too much sealant on my doll in the beginning and didn't really understand why the colors weren't sticking. But if you just do a few light sprays, that should do the trick. Here I'm just going in with a white watercolor pencil to fill in the sclera of the eyes. I also use a pink pencil to fill in the tear duct and the waterline. I'm also putting some white into the iris to add a little more depth to the color so it doesn't look so flat and soulless. Use pastels to add more color to the blush and the eyeshadow. Q-tips are one of my favorite tools to help me blend colors of pastels together to create a better gradient and make it look more natural. I continue adding more blush around the face, like the nose, and once again on the cheeks. One of the things I wanted to experiment with on this doll was adding some freckles. So to do that, I added some of my brown gouache paint to water to make it a little more runny and easier to spray on the face. If you're trying out a new technique, it's always good to practice on a piece of scrap paper first, because if you mess up, then it won't be on the doll. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to take the brush and flick the bristles towards the face so that some of the paint flies off onto little dots on her face. This is why we needed to water down the gouache. When it dries, it'll look like cute little freckles. But we don't want any on her eye because that might look kind of weird. Next comes one of my absolute favorite parts of customizing, adding the eye shine. It really brings the doll to life, and a lot of times I will kind of be afraid that the doll looks soulless while I'm working on it. And then when I add the eye shines, they really don't look soulless anymore. When I'm working with gouache paint and also acrylic paint, I always water the paint down before I put it on the doll. It just makes it easier to work with, in my opinion. So take some water on your brush and just mix it in with the paint until it's a little more liquidy. Now, this part can take a lot of precision, and I tend to have a shaky hand sometimes, so if that's the same story for you, then it's okay to use two hands. I also wanted to add a little more life to her face by adding some cute little white dots to her cheeks. Now I'm just going back in with my white watercolor pencil to add in some more highlights around the face. I'm also drawing in some strokes in her eyebrows to give them a little more detail and definition. I decided I wanted to try some more experimenting here by dipping my watercolor pencils in some water and then adding some more freckles around the face. I really like how doing this turned out. I think she looks so cute with all those freckles. Sometimes I like to go in with an X-Acto knife and clean up some of the paint lines. If you do this, be really careful because it's easy to damage the vinyl. As one last final touch before I put on the lip gloss, I'm just going in with some gouache paint and defining the crease of the lips even more. And now comes the icing on the cake, the lip gloss. I would not recommend using what I just showed you because I found over time it gets a little gummy, so you should use this instead. And she's done! I think she turned out so cute. I definitely learned a lot of things while I was making this doll, but I think she turned out really cute, especially compared to some of my first tries. What do you think of her? I also decided to curl her hair and make her a really cute outfit, but I didn't show those on video. If you'd like some more videos about that kind of thing in the future, just let me know in the comments. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please subscribe to my channel to see future tutorials and other doll videos. Thanks for watching! Bye!